Hi, so I'm David Bradley, and this is the first lesson in a video series called Applied Theory for Bass Guitar. And the idea is that we're going to talk about basically all the fundamental theory knowledge on the instrument that you might need to get to a decent level of competency. And it's going to get incrementally more and more complex as we go on. I've kind of gone through it in fairly meticulous stages. And this first lesson is going to be about fretboard knowledge, names of the notes on the fretboard and the position of those notes. So it's more or less going to look like this, and then we're going to take you through each one, so memorizing the position of the notes at each of these sort of indicators. So if you look at what do I need? This. If you look at the fretboard, on my bass here I've got inlays, so where's the first fret is here, and we've got inlays at 3, 5, 7, 9 and 12, and that's a pretty good point for starting memorizing the fretboard in general. And I've known a lot of musicians actually who've gotten pretty far with just pattern based bass playing, but I feel for the purposes of theory it's quite essential to know that, say for example, this is C, this is E, this is A, that's B, that's G, C sharp, E, for example. So I'm going to run through this as a kind of preamble, or the very first episode. And yeah, so we're just basically covering the fundamentals of the bass in general in this applied theory for bass guitar. So this is episode 1, fretboard knowledge, names and position of notes on the fretboard. To start out with lesson 1, with fretboard knowledge, names and position of the note on the fretboard, we need to look at and memorize the chromatic scale. So these are the 12 notes that make up all Western music. Like there are variations where, say for example, in Eastern music you might have microtones which go in between these notes, which might be something like, but that's not really in the scope of what we're doing. So we're looking at the chromatic scale, and we're arbitrarily starting on C. So if you were to start on the bass with C, so let's find a C, there's a C, so 5th fret of your highest string, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we start there, and we just go up 1 fret at a time. You've got C, C sharp, D flat, D, D sharp or E flat, E, F, F sharp or G flat, G, G sharp or A flat, A sharp or B flat, B, C. So you need to memorize this, and the thing to bear in mind is that they all have sharps and flats in between them except for here, this note here, E and F and B and C. So if you just go up the alphabet between C and A, so say you start on A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, that's how the pattern goes. All you do is, when you go between E and F there, for example, you don't play a sharp, and B and C there's no sharp or flat, but all the others are either the same letter up or 1 letter down, with either a sharp or a flat. I hope that makes sense, but basically it's C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A flat, A sharp, sorry, B, C, all the equivalent with the flats in place. So you kind of have to know this and memorize that over time, and the way to do it is just to remember that there's a sharp or a flat in between every note except for E and F and B and C. Just to clarify, I'm waffling a little bit, so how this works, you have 4 notes that are either sharp or flat, so you've got C, D, F, G or A that are the equivalent of B flat, A flat, G flat, D, E flat and D flat. Now there's quite a few reasons for this, but I think it's to do with written theory and the piano in general, but the rough gist is that white notes on the piano, so this is meant to be a piano here, the white notes on the piano are C, D, E, F, G, A, B, so they're the ones I just dotted, and then the sharps and flats are here, 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 and here. So they appear arbitrary, and I don't actually have enough time in this video to go through it, but all you have to do is remember that in between each note of the major scale, or the white notes on the piano, you have these equivalent notes here on the side, and then C, D, F, G, A all sharp, or D, E, G, A, B all sharp. So I just wanted to clarify that before I move on. So we're looking at the E string note names here. So the E string is your thickest string here. So it's E, A, D, G, G, D, A, E. And we're looking at basically where these dots are. You may notice on your fretboard, it's quite common, most fretboards have it, on the side, when you're looking down, there are dots at fret points. So you've got 3, 5, 7, 9, 12, all marked on there, and usually they can be they're marked with a dot in the middle. I've got like this inlay thing, but what I tend to do with this anyway is I remember the position of the dotted notes and then work out by proxy what the rest of the notes are. So if you memorize G, A, B as 3, 5 and 7, then you've got C sharp at 9, which is the next dot, and the next dot is the same as the open string, which is E. So if you've got that worked out, then you know that F is there, because we know the chromatic scale. So it might be worth getting your chromatic scale up there, or once you've memorized the chromatic scale. But we start with E, F, F sharp or G, flat, G, G sharp, A, B flat as I think of it, but it could be A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E. So you move through the chromatic scale like that, and these are the E string note names. So I'll give you a second to look at that, or you can pause the video and kind of work through it if you'd like. But the next one we're going to look at is the A string note names. And similarly with this, so we know that the open string here, that is A, so that's our anchor point. And then we've got B flat at fret 1, or A sharp, C, D, so that's 3, 5, 7 is E, 9 is F sharp, and then back up at 12, we've got A again. And then you've got, if we look at the chromatic scale, you've got, where did we start? We're starting on A. So again, if we go through starting here now, so A, B flat, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A. So pull up this panel one more time. That's the A string note names. And again, you can pause this and kind of memorize it. I would suggest taking some written notes at this stage, but I may include like a little PDF or a document at the end. We'll have to see how that goes, because I don't know what I can quite do with that, but I may have these images just available in a Dropbox or a download. We'll have to see how it goes. The next string to look at is the D string, and this is the second highest string in pitch, second thinnest, so that's your D string. Make sure you can see that. So second one down, and then you've got D, D sharp, F, G, A, B, D. And then you can extrapolate from that with the chromatic scale again, which is which. So you've got E, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, C, and C sharp. So again, take a look at this, kind of, you can feel free to make notes. I'll try and include images of this for the end. And then the last one to look at is the G string note name. So G, G sharp, A, B flat or A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D sharp, sorry, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G. So take your time over, because ideally basically the way I did it, I'm going to jump to the fretboard. The way I did it was I memorised the first 2 strings, because if you jump up 2 frets and miss a string, you've got the same note again, because that's the octave. So all I did initially when I was learning this was memorise 3, 5, 7, 9, because we know that the open string, the 12, is the same note. So basically when you've got G, you know you've got G there and there, A there and there, B there and there, C sharp, and then I just learned it for both strings. So the simplest way to remember that is you've got G, A, B, C sharp, C, D, E, F sharp, and the rest of that you can extrapolate based on remembering basically the position of 8 notes. So as long as you've got G, A, B, C sharp, C, D, E, F sharp, you're pretty much good to go, and you can, as time goes on, it will speed up the process of extrapolating the correct notes until you know what it is. So just to kind of finish up what we were talking about, the quickest way to memorise the notes on the fretboard is to take G, A, B, C sharp, and you've got your open string up there, which is always the same note, and C, D, E, F sharp, and you pretty much, and then you can include the top, so you've got F, B flat, D flat, or E flat or D sharp, and A sharp. So you can kind of include those, but I just tend to, what I would work on, honestly, is memorising the chromatic scale and then the position of these 4 notes on the first 2 strings, and then just take those octaves and work them out. And it's just as simple as that, and that's pretty much all I'm going to put in this episode for now, as far as I've decided. So thank you for watching. I hope this is useful. If you watch this and were a bit concerned about the intensity of the knowledge being passed on in terms of if it's too complicated or not complicated enough, rest assured it will get thoroughly more complicated. And also, if there's any questions you have, just type in the comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like what you see, and thank you for watching.